All right, man. The grid is down. The balloon is up. It has hit the fan. It is cold. It is dark. Your children are hungry, and you need a fire. You don't have a fire. All you have is a tomahawk, a dagger, and a shoelace. Are you going home cold and hungry, man? Or are you going to light up the night? Stand by for answers. Cue the intro. So fire without spark. In an emergency situation, can we start a fire using just what we would, I'm assuming I would have some things on me that maybe it's not fair for me to assume I'd have. But I'm assuming I've got my tomahawk, my general purpose stick-em dagger, and a bootlace. That is not unreasonable to assume. I usually wear boots with laces unless I'm spiffed up and I've got on my cowboy boots. Even if I didn't have the tomahawk, I could rig something that would work like a tomahawk, and the same thing with the knife. I actually always have a knife. It's usually not this one. It's usually this one. It's my little buck knife. I love buck knives. But I didn't want to be beaten on my buck knife. So we're going to see if we can start a fire using the drill and bow method. I have already shot all the clips prior to this. I'm just doing this intro now afterwards, so I know what's about to happen. But let's see what we can do. Fire with only a shoelace, a tomahawk, and a dagger. Okay, so the first step is to get the fireboard, right? I assume. I don't know. I've never done this. But I wanted to use cedar. Cedar is real brittle, and when it dries, it's easy to work with. So I've got an old cedar log. I've actually got a lot of cedar logs. I collect logs as I find dead cedar. I drag it out of the woods. So, but all these are, this is a cedar log that I dragged out of the woods, and this one actually comes from right here. So this isn't a, this is definitely something I would have had access to. What I did is, of course, got the tomahawk and just whittled in or chopped in on both sides, and then on both ends, and then came in from the side and got myself out a flake. I actually squared off or flattened the top while it was still in. I think it came out just like that. And so I flattened it down because it's easier to square it or smooth it. I can't remember what that's called. While it's part of the log, while it's still on the log, instead of trying to work it when it's off the log. And that's actually how I did that. I was shaving it and missed and got my finger. But I flattened the top while it was still on there, then chopped down on the ends and got it out from the sides with the tomahawk. And then once I had this piece out, I worked it a little bit, and then took my trusty do-all dagger and used it like a fro and just split it. So I got a fireboard, then I used the dagger, and I bet it didn't take me a minute to work out a little hole. So that's how we got our fireboard. All right. Okay, for the tinder, I'm just using cedar bark. If you got a dead log, it peels off in long sections, and then it's real fibrous, and you just start shredding it. You can take it right off a live tree, which I've done some of that too. It doesn't take long. You get a bunch. I've had real good luck with it in the past, using it as tinder to start wood, start fires. Dead grass is not something you can always come along with, and leaves for me, I've never had good luck with leaves. Something else that works real well though is the inside of poplar bark. If it's dry, it's got to be dead and dry. But if you can get the inside of poplar bark and it's not wet, that stuff is real fibrous and shreds down to this really good little tinder. And the inside of sweet gum bark I've been able to use the same way, but it doesn't shred as easy as the poplar bark, and the cedar bark seems to be the best. So we're going to use that underneath our fireboard for the hopefully for the ember to drop down into the tinder and us to get a little spark going. The other thing we're going to use to start this fire once we get the tinder going, hopefully, is what we call fat wood. Sometimes you hear it called turpentine. This is naturally occurring stuff. You'll find this all over the woods. I mean, you're not just going to just like walk in the woods and find it in the first 50 feet, but if you pay attention, you will find this stuff all throughout the woods, especially along old fence lines. For some reason, when you just nail fencing into trees, this fat wood results a lot. It's what's left over when a pine tree dies while the sap is down, usually in the winter. And so then the tree dies and all that sap is down in the stump or the lower portions of the tree, and you get, and if you look, see, this is the bottom of the tree, this is the stump, and then this would have been like the very, very bottom. And you get, most of you have seen this before. This is actually, you buy this stuff, you know, like anywhere as fire starter. Sometimes they'll call it turpentine. Oh, that's not a great piece. There we go. Kenna, you get close to this bit. I wasted a lot of this I wouldn't normally waste. But that's what it looks like. And you can buy this, you'll get big boxes of it, you know, at Walmart or somewhere, called fire starter, and it's actually natural. And this is like solid gasoline. I mean, you could almost start this entire log off of one match. But once we get a little bit of a flame going, we're going to be putting this stuff down in there. And once we get this stuff burning, it's game, set, match. Because this stuff is amazing. It burns really hot with the thick, oily smoke. There was actually whole industries set up around this stuff in the old days. The whole state of North Carolina at one point, the name Tar Heels and everything comes from an industry that was built around this turpentine and whatnot. They almost deforested the entire state in the early years of the, actually probably even before the Republic. So this is good stuff. We call it fat wood. We'll do a video on this one day and show you how we identify it and look for it. But this is one of the most important things. This would be one of the more important things you could find and identify as what is a bushcraft or whatnot. So we're going to be using this in our fire too. All right, so here's the bow, just an old bootlace, and I cut at just a sapling so we'd have something good and tight. This is of course the engine of this whole thing, so we'll see how it works. But all I did was notch the ends a little bit and tie some knots in the ends of the bootlace and put them down there in those notches, and we'll see how well it works. I have not tried this yet. I'm about to try it. I will probably try it the first time off camera, just so we don't waste Mariah's time while I try to figure this stuff out. Obviously, I will show you the failures and the fixes as they come. But this is going to be the bow. Look you there. I told you I'd show you the failures. I think this is a sweet gum. It was just a little. We don't have any leaves out right now, so this might be sweet gum. It might actually be oak too. I don't know. Yeah, there we go. So obviously our first problem we got to fix. I won't waste y'all's time on camera fixing it. But this is going to be our bow as soon as I get it worked. I may just need to make that notch a little deeper. That's all. All right. So here's our initial setup. We got a couple of rocks. I got a nice flat thin rock, which we got out of a creek somewhere, and these got out of a creek somewhere. And we're going to get our cedar bark tinder down in there. We're going to have the fireboard on top of that with our, I don't know what to call this, but this is just I wanted it to be hard but dry, so I got a pine branch off of a standing pine and just whittled the ends. So we're going to get that in there. We're going to try to have this on top as a pivot and see how that works. Get our bow on there and see if we can't get a fire going, but we're not we're going to try first without off camera, so Mariah's not stuck here while I saw on this thing for 45 minutes. But I kind of wanted to show you guys the attempt before I got it all working, because we know it will work. I mean, obviously the system works, but the question is right now is, can I make it work without a lot of pre-planning? You know, things just went to hell in a handbasket overnight. You know, how hard is this to actually accomplish? So we'll see you again in a little while. Well, we've learned a few things. Mostly we've learned that this can work. Gotten this close a couple of times. But this is not this is not just head knowledge. This is a skill set. The very first problem we ran into with our first bow is that I just had it too tight. It broke as soon as I tried to put the drill on it. This socket is really, really important. The hardest part, well, it's all hard, but the hardest part is to get any kind of motion and keep it up inside the socket. Now I won't be able to do it at all since y'all are watching. And once you get that going, the next hardest part is to keep motion. And you want to push down too hard so that it won't turn at all. Yeah, you got to get the exact right pressure that you know, it's got friction, but you're not pushing down so hard that you can't keep it moving, because motion is the most important part. Now I'm not going to be able to do it at all since the camera's on. And then I was using one twist, and that wasn't working at all. Since I've switched to two twists, I was actually got really, really, really close once. But I don't know, you know, once you finally get into a groove and get it going, it heats up really quick if you can get it going, but you just got to be able to sustain that motion. And I don't know if I quit paying attention or what, but it always seems right before I'm about to hit critical mass, I let go and it comes off somehow. So we're going to keep going at it. I'm about 45 minutes in at this point. I don't know, I'm bad with time. It might only be 25 minutes, but a couple of times when I've gotten a good groove, it's only taken like 2 or 3 minutes, it seems like, to get smoke. But then before I get that smoke into some coals to drop down through the hole into the tinder, you know, I come off. And of course, as soon as you come off, all the heat dissipates and you're starting back over. So we're going to keep going, but that's how it's looking so far. Alright, so we seem to have some smoke coming up again. We have been here before though, and it has all fallen apart. I probably shouldn't be trying to talk. But since I got this good rhythm going again, it's probably only taken a minute, maybe even less, to get this smoke coming up. I just don't know how long it's going to take to hit a critical mass where we get an ember falling through. Of course, I already feel myself getting panicky, and I'm going to screw it up because I'm so anxious now. But this seems to be what you got to have, this just smooth speed. And whatever it takes to get that, at least we're seeing smoke, right? I mean, that's shucks! Oh my gosh, it's so hot, I'm going to lose all that heat. That's what happens. Ah! Ah! Oh. It's still smoking a little bit. Oh, this is stupid. Now I got to start all the way over. Oh gosh, man. I do not know how long I've been out here doing this. It's got to be at least an hour, I would imagine. We have gotten so close so many times. I have tried so many different combinations of things. Just because you have head knowledge does not mean you can do something. Just because you've watched Primitive Technologies YouTube videos does not mean you can start a fire. I have learned a few things right off, finally. The two most important aspects are definitely this socket and this drill. My drill's not straight enough or round enough, and I tried skinning it down and making it round, and that was a mistake because it bends a lot on me now. I'm about to give up. almost the Sabbath now. If this was a real situation, we would have a very cold, unpleasant Sabbath. Because, you know, you can't kindle a fire during the Sabbath. This is beyond stupid. It's doable. This would work. I have gotten this close so many times. I've gotten smoke and it's gotten hot, and this socket has gotten so hot through there it was burning the palm of my hand. I can feel it. It's right around the corner, but I don't have it yet. Now, obviously, if this was a real emergency and I didn't have any other choice, I would just stay here until I had it, and it would be midnight, except for the Sabbath, and I'd still be out here working, and I'd be going to get a different drill, and we would just keep playing with this thing until I got it. Now look, there we go. No, and I lose it. See, when it comes up from this round part to the part I skinned it, I'd lose it. And if I wasn't so stupid, bullheaded, obstinate when I get angry, I'd have just gone and gotten a new drill, because the drill, I think, is really the problem. It'll bend up here because I whittled it, and then when it hits this spot right here, it just goes crazy. I'm going to make myself stop because this is a failure. We're going to, well, this isn't a failure. I'm a failure. We're going to call this part 1. We're going to come back to this and redo it. We're going to go ahead and upload this one, and we'll show you the truth of the situation. So we'll come back probably Sunday. I don't know, maybe not Sunday. We've got to go get the Passover lamb on Sunday, and Madeline's coming up. So it might be first part of next week before we come back to this. But I tell you, if I learned anything, man, head knowledge isn't good enough. You got to practice this stuff, because this is a skill set. It can work. I know this is a failure, and there's no fire, and we're going to bed cold and hungry, but it can work. I've proven that to myself that it can work. Obviously, we know it can work because people do it world over, but I can't do it as things stand right now. So there we go. We're gonna make it work. But I am so frustrated. I'm so angry. I have been saying things that, let's just say, I wish I wasn't still that type of person who said those things. Thank you, man. We appreciate you.